Uh, First of all, I would like to thank you for the opportunity. I'm happy to be at Vox Days Romania this year, although it's an online event. Let's hope the coming years will give us the chance to re-meet in person, and why not after the talks to admire beautiful sunsets as the one in this picture. The picture I did a few years ago when crossing by sea from Italy into Greece. So today we will try to overload the notion of REST APIs and introduce another angle, the one of courteous, respectful REST API. So just a few words about me. I'm Horatiu. I'm from Bucharest, Romania. Currently, I'm an R&D software developer with Tango, one of the most well-known telecom expense management solution providers. And in general, I aim being a software craftsman. When inspired, I write small articles, which I primarily share on my personal blog, and I stay in touch with the dev community, mostly on Twitter. So the plan for today is to start discussing about API perspectives in general, to define the concepts of sunsetting and deprecation, and then to effectively leverage the corresponding sunset and deprecation HTTP headers and solve a few real concerns. So in general, APIs are software products after all. And this means they have their own life cycle, which means resources are designed, developed, used, and potentially decommissioned at some point in time. Now, if we refer to the HTTP specs, we learn a resource is nothing but a target of an HTTP request. In the sample project of this talk, we will see later, we will try to focus on two types of resources. First of all, get all reviews REST operation, which will get a bunch of reviews, code reviews. This is the target of a get reviews request. And on the other hand, we will also define the resource of a review entity itself, which is the target of a get reviews by the unique identifier. We will see how a service provider can come closer to its clients, and in addition to complying to the agreed contract, she can add useful hints in responses it provides, and of course, where this is applicable. These hints might help the client application act proactively and perform a great deal of useful actions, like sending emails, firing alarms, and so on. We can imagine more scenarios. So an API, just as any other software product, is usually observed from two perspectives, a rational and a relational one. And of course, ideally, an API is a communication interface, technically done right, functionally correct, and one that produces value. So this, compared to humans, is exactly, in my opinion, what is seen and understood from outside. So we have a head with a brain, the body, and the sensors. But what if we also take into account what's inside, the emotional perspective? And by this, I mean the heart. In case of APIs, this is a respectful promise between the service provider and its clients. And this, in my opinion, orchestrates the two edges of this collaboration, the tranquility and the conflict. So I would say that without any doubt, this results in a way better relation between the parties, just like in the story of Pinocchio. So, to move forward with these concepts, the life cycle of a resource in general lasts from its inception and rise to its sunset. But what does this mean? In an intuitive way, it means it is designed, used, and very likely that at some point in time, not good enough anymore. So it becomes deprecated. We all come across this notion, of course. And from that point on, although still operational, it is no longer recommended. Additionally, service providers usually suggest an alternative instead. Sunset, on the other hand, comes afterwards, and it's a second phase, one that effectively ends the deprecation phase. Now the resource is decommissioned and not reachable at all. So a request to it will return a 404 not found, probably. So the sunset date, it's a deadline. So the two dates that are represented here in the picture are, in my opinion, the significant moments that we would like to focus on throughout this deprecation phases. So in practice, we will try to focus on concerns like temporary resources, temporary resource handling, resource retention, resource deprecation. And when facing such concerns, a service provider may use the sunset and the deprecation HTTP headers to provide its clients hints and make the whole interaction go smoother. These are concerns that we will try to focus in this presentation today. So both are HTTP headers, both sunset and deprecation. So now let's deep dive a little bit into the details of these two headers. First of all, the deprecation and the sunset headers are optional. So although they are documented in the RFCs indicated here, one of which remained in the state of draft. So although they are documented, they are not standard, but just recommendations. Nice to have. Deprecation defines a timestamp and some links that may be added in the corresponding HTTP header. So the timestamp is a past or a future timestamp, and represents the start of phase one from the first picture. That is the moment when the resource is considered deprecated. The links usually provide the alternative to be used instead during this deprecation phase. And of course, the deprecation one, more details on the deprecation policy. So this is not a standard. Usually it goes to a document or a web page or whatever. Sunset, on the other hand, defines the timestamp when phase two ends, and is always a future timestamp. At this date, the resource is not reachable anymore. Okay, so we will have a demo project, and we will try to code these two scenarios. Actually, three scenarios concerns that I mentioned earlier. And this demo project is a code review application. It's inspired by one of my favorite day-to-day activities, that is the code review. I called it Argus, after the mythological character that had 1,000 eyes. It's never enough to have eyes during a code review. And this Argus mythological character was transformed later in the peacock tail So it is said that this is why it looks like that. It has one domain entity, the review. We will try to stick to it. That may have different statuses. When created, it's a draft. Once open, it can be either closed or cancelled. Closed, it means the review was finished. Cancelled, the person that opened it is not interested in it anymore, probably reopen another or whatever. Let's have this simple use case. So the two REST operations we will focus on are get all reviews, which you might figure out that it will be declared deprecated. That's the first one that I mentioned in one of the first slides. And the second REST operation will be get one review. Okay, so as we all know, code is more clear than talking. So let's move to the IDE and explore a bit the demo project that we have. So it's the Java 17 Spring Boot application, exposes a REST API for interactive with reviews. It has a get all reviews operation. What else? A search operation and the retrieval of IDs of reviews by their unique identifier. So it's nothing out of the ordinary. It delegates to the service that uses a repository to access an in-memory database. It's a level 3. Okay, it's a level 3 REST API according to the Richardson maturity model. It has micromedia. So we will try to do more and include more than hypermedia, also the links. So if we invoke this API of retrieving all reviews, we will find 4 such reviews, one in each state, which was primarily opened, loaded in the beginning, so that we have some data, since the database is an in-memory one. So one in each state. The draft one has the date created populated and can transition into an open state only. So these are the available APIs for such an entity. The open one, which has the date created and the date open populated and can be either closed or canceled. And the closed and the canceled ones have the corresponding dates as well populated, and they cannot transition in any other state. So basically, this is our starting point for today. So if we have a look at the review, as we mentioned, it's pretty straightforward. It has an ID, a description, the status, which is very important. These dates that describe the states the review is in, and that's it. Okay. As I was mentioning earlier, the 4 reviews are loaded right when the application starts. So this will be the base starting point for our presentation today in terms of concerns addressed. Now, if we switch back to the presentation, let's see the use case that we want to do. So these are 2 for the first part. If a draft review is opened is not opened within 2 days, it is deleted. And the second one, canceled review, is kept for 1 year, then purged. So conceptually, these represent 2 concerns we want to deal with. And these are temporary resource handling. We consider the temporary resource the draft one. It's unclear what happens to it. And then the canceled one is kept for 1 year, then purged. So this will be the resource retention. The API of interest here is the get one review by its identifier, as we already mentioned. This API behaves differently before and after the sunset date. Before, the HTTP status will be 200. Okay, that is the review resource is successfully found. After the sunset date, it will behave differently. It will return an HTTP status 404, which means the review cannot be found anymore. So the solution is, as mentioned earlier, we will leverage the sunset HTTP header, and by this, I think it is courteous from the service provider to be able to transmit this hint to the client application. So this can be easily done if we include the sunset HTTP header in every response in case a review is dropped or canceled. So this hint basically says that after the sunset date, the resource is not available anymore. Very simple. So the two concerns that we are going to code now are temporary resources and resource retention. So the actual solution is a simple and decoupled one. So basically, for every concern we deal with, events are going to be used. So having the Spring application at hand, we can easily leverage the existing application event publisher to inject it where needed. So for each considered request, we check if hints are available. If not, the response is returned. If there are, they are packaged in an event and then published to the application publisher to a corresponding event listener. This event listener will take the hint from the event and decorate it in the response, and then the response will be returned to the user. So, coming back to the code, we said that such a review is a sunsettable entity resource. So we will create a sunsettable interface. And here in the interface, we will define the following method. So we'll have a sunset date method that returns this date if available. So we will go to the review and make it implement sunsettable, and then we will implement the method according to the state. So in case the status we will return empty, if not draft, in which case we return as we said, the date created plus 2 days. And in case the review is canceled, we will return date canceled plus 1 year, exactly as we mentioned earlier. So that's all. So up until now, we are trying to address this question. Are there any hints? So depending on the status, we might have some hints. So what we need to do is to try to pack these hints into an event. So in this case, we will create a very simple Java record called sunset event. which will have the HTTP response inside, because we need to decorate the hints in the response, and the date that we, let's call it sunset date, that we defined in the interface. So basically that's it with this record. Now we packaged it. So let's come back to the controller and see what happens when a single review is retrieved. So when is retrieved, we need to answer to the question. So review sunset date. If present, we have the date available, and we will package it into the event that we created, and then the event will need to be published to the application publisher that we have injected in here. So event publisher, publish event. Okay. So basically what we have right now, if the sunset date is available, we will publish to the application event. So coming back to the scheme that we have, we published it. Now we need someone to take it and decode it. So we will create an event listener that's called response event listener. And this listener will extend the abstract event listener that I defined in here, which has some formatting for links and dates, things that we are going to use, but they are not that important for the sake of our presentation. So we will extend this abstract event listener. And here we will define the method that listens to such events. So public void on sunset event, we need to tell it's an event listener. So we'll annotate it with the event listener. And then when such an event is received, we will do exactly what we planned. So we will get the response and then add the header we mentioned earlier, sunset. And then we will get from the event the sunset date. And of course, we will format it accordingly. Now, let's see what happens if we rerun this project and invoke these endpoints for retrieving events. So we will start with the draft one, which is ID number 1. And if we get the response, we can see that we get this sunset message which says 1 hour from now, 2 days from now, the resource will not be available because we decided from business reason that they are not kept more than 2 days. If we go to an open review and submit the request, we are not going to find any such sunset hint. But if going to the canceled one, see the canceled review, again, the sunset appears and it says that 1 year from now, from the date created, the date opened, the date canceled, I'm sorry, it will be purged. So we basically solved the first two concerns that we defined earlier. Coming back to the presentation, let's move forward and have the third and the last use case. Get all reviews REST operation is replaced. This basically is, of course, due to some specific reasons. We don't need to brainstorm right now what are these reasons, just take that as a fact. And since it's being replaced, it will be done with a more useful method. So conceptually, this represents the deprecation process of the resource. So the API of interest here are, there are two: get all reviews and search reviews. The former, it's deprecated at T1. Between T1 and T2, it remains operational, but the latter is the recommended one in this case, while after T2, the former is not going to be responsive anymore. So by this moment, by T2, clients should have transitioned from one API to another. So the first one is deprecated, the second one is recommended to be used instead. The solution is, again, in two steps. The first phase, get reviews response, contains the deprecation header that specifies when the deprecation started or will start, depending on how we define it. Also, one may add, as part of the links headers, the two links that we mentioned earlier, the recommended alternative and the link to more details concerning the deprecation policy. So the interpretation here says the endpoint is or will be deprecated since or at, respectively, and alternative and details are provided. Now, in phase 2, get reviews response will also contain the sunset header that specifies the moment that the deprecation basically ends, and which means this call is not responsive anymore. So again, hints are transmitted to the client application, and these hints may be leveraged for taking particular actions, of course, if needed. Send emails, fire alarms, or whatever. So the interpretation says the endpoint is responsive until the sunset date, then decommissioned. So coming back to the solution, we will try to address the third concern, resource deprecation, in the same manner that we addressed it for the first two concerns. So to recap a bit, whenever we receive a request to the method the REST operation that we consider deprecated, we check to see or try to infer whether we have any hints or not. If not, the response will be provided to the customer, to the client application, sorry. If there are hints, those hints will be packed into a meaningful event, will be published to the readily available application event publisher that resides in the Spring application context. We will have a listener that gets the event, and with the information in there, with the pieces of information it finds in there, in the event, will decorate the response so that it is more meaningful to the client application. So coming back to our IDE, let's examine a bit this annotation that I define in here. I called it a deprecated resource annotation. And in here, I put all these 4 attributes that we've been discussing about for the last 30 minutes. Since, alternate, policy, and sunset. This is phase 2. The first 3 are phase 1. So in order to know or to start telling that we have some hints, we go to the REST operation that we want to deprecate and annotate the method as such. So we will say deprecated resource. We will say that it's deprecated since and after Vox Days Romania, for example. So what's the date today? Okay, that's okay. So 22nd of October 2021, midnight. And let's be more courteous and provide it in a UTC time zone, or at UTC, more correctly said. Then the alternate for this, we said, would be reviews, search, and we provide some details in here. Let's say it's a filter pattern, something like this. The policy will be something like, I don't know, technically correct.eu policy. And for phase 2, we will have the sunset, so the deadline. The deadline, let's say it's 31st December 2021. We'll leave it till the end of the year. So that's it. Now, we put the deprecation resource annotation in here, but we somehow need to intercept every call to this method. I wouldn't like to alter the contents of the endpoint and put some concerns in the code that perform coupling. So let's see what would happen if we have an interceptor and I declare it as abstract, because the job of this interceptor is to detect whether a certain annotation is present at handler method level. So in the pre-handle method of the handler interceptor, we check whether the method is annotated, whether it's a handler method, and if the annotation is present, we do some additional stuff. If not, we will continue the chain of interceptors. So we will need to define a new, let's call it deprecated resource interceptor. We will make it exist in the application context, and we will extend the annotated handler interceptor in case of a deprecated resource. We will implement the two methods, and we'll deprecated resource class is the class of the annotation. We will return true because we don't want to stop the chain of interceptors. And here, if we want to, we can say something like this: log info deprecated rest operation detected. Okay, so we detected that, and we need to continue with our plan. So we somehow found out there are any hints. We discovered that there are. So we need to do the next step, to package it into an event and publish to application event publisher. So we would need another wrapper for this. We will also use a record. So deprecated resource event. Okay, and in here we will have the HTTP servlet response, because this is the one we want to decorate. And additionally, we will have string sims, string alternate. What else? String policy and string sunset. And that's it. We will use this to wrap the call. So we have the annotation in here. That's okay. And we will use the application event publisher. Okay. To do what we planned. Event publisher dot publish event new deprecated resource event of response, and then annotation since annotation alternate policy and sunset. Let's put them like this. Okay, so that's all. As you can imagine, the last step is to intercept the call and go in the listener and create another one. Event listener, and we will have public void on deprecated event of deprecated event and then we have two things to do. So we will get the response, and then we will add the first header called deprecation, and in there we will put the since. So event that since. Okay, and the second one we will get again the response and also decorate it with, this time I'm intentionally using HTTP headers link. This is a standard one. And here we will put two things. I have a helper for formatting links. So it's format link, event alternate, and the relation is alternate. And also we will also add in here quickly the other link, event policy deprecation. Moreover, we will also return this event from the chain of events, and this event will be new sunset event of event response and event sunset. So if we read, and of course we will format it accordingly. So, sorry, I need to parse it, not to format it. Okay, so in case of returning another event from an event listener, it is automatically published to the event publisher, and then we leverage the functionality that we developed in here. So now, if we quickly go into the endpoint section, so I rerun the application. Where are we? Okay, and perform a get of all reviews. We don't get anything because I forgot to do a step. So I haven't put all the mechanism in here. So we need to define the deprecated resource interceptor and auto wire into the application context, and also add it in here. So sorry about that. If we rerun the application and go and perform the request for the reviews, we now see the headers that we want. So it's deprecation. It's the one with the links, with the alternative and the deprecation policy and the sunset date of the second phase. So now switching back to this, we have the conclusions. So I might say that an API in general shall be technically correct. This is mandatory. So keep the promise to the clients and never break the contract. And it should be respectful and courteous. That is to include hints that make the contract more pleasant. And I'm sure you heard about this line. It's nice to be important, but more important to be nice. I was surprised to find out that it was attributed to Roger Federer, which is one of my sport idols. So let's remain with this at the end. So I have the resources in here, and I also have the source code available. These are the two draft, the two RFCs that document these. If you want to read more, this is an article that started me with thinking about doing this in practice. So thank you very much. It was a pleasure to be part of this conference. I don't know if there are any questions.
Yeah, I'm looking at the chat and the Q&A section. I don't see any yet. If anybody has some questions, can answer them. Can put them in the chat or in the Q&A section. And
we have one more thing to do. So let me see if I can. Okay. One more thing to do. I'm going to. I don't know why am I not able to. Okay, so I need to. Come on, presentation mode. So okay, so code is done, but not tested. So I'm just going to add it as it is, and I'll try to improve it later. So if you want to get in touch, I'm mostly available on Twitter, where I try to stay in line with the development community. So thank you very much one more time, and
thank you.
I hope to see you again next year in person.
Let's hope so. Yeah. Bye.
Have a good day and enjoy the conference.
Have a good day too. Thank you.
Thank you.